right, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm Dr. Anna Pearl. I'm a chiropractor. Welcome to Bixby Knolls Wellness Center. I see some faces that I don't recognize, but that doesn't mean that you don't come here regularly. I'm just not here every single day. But we're really excited to have you here at one of our educational lecture series. We are so excited to have Jill Ross. She's a nurse practitioner along with a lot of other acronyms as she was just explaining. And she's going to be talking about cholesterol. It's something that's really important to cardiovascular health. It's a big issue in the United States, and things that we can do to naturally manage. And a lot of that comes from being well educated. So with that, I'll ask for a round of applause to welcome Jill.
Oh, love a round of applause. Oh, thanks. Yes, thank you. All right, that was a great introduction. So quickly, I have been in nursing my entire life. I wrote about wanting to be a nurse in kindergarten. I was a CNA at 15. That's a certified nursing assistant. Graduated from Cal State Long Beach with my bachelor's degree back in about 5 years after that, I went back to school and became a family nurse practitioner. I worked at Memorial for 5 years as an ICU nurse. In that interim, decided to become a nurse practitioner. I was the very first nurse practitioner to round at Memorial or St. Mary's Medical Center. The doctors in the area refer to me as the OG. I am the original nurse practitioner. I've been an NP since 1997. So a long time, 40 years that I've been taking care of the members of Long Beach. And I really have a lot of passion for what I do. What brought me to be the holistic practitioner that I am today were my own health struggles with cholesterol. Honestly, that was really kind of that in menopause is what really sent me into moving away from a more Western way of delivering care, because my care, I was a cardiologist basically for 10 to 15 years. I did internal medicine. I did infectious disease with an infectious disease doctor for 10 years during kind of the whole HIV crazy time. See, I am old. I do pulmonary critical care medicine still to this day. So I am a very Western educated practitioner, but when it came to my own struggles with cholesterol and me having to take a cholesterol medication that almost crippled me in 3 days, that I had to find other ways to manage my own health. And that started my journey into functional medicine, which was about 12 to 15 years ago. I don't want to do the math right now, but about that long. So with that being said, I want to do my first disclaimer, which is if you're looking at my arms and thinking that maybe I'm a victim of violence, I am not. I am a victim of puppy. Actually, this puppy, we like to call her Big Head Dakota, but she's still learning her impulse control. So hence the wounds. But yeah, exercise is a really important part of staying healthy. So I'm really grateful for the big dog because she's definitely getting us out there and more active, which has been good. Yeah, thank you. So I always like to start with some kind of a quote, and I like this one. We can't become what we want by remaining what we are, right? We have to take a step forward if we're going to make any kind of change in life. And little changes actually can equate with really big changes within the body. Okay, and so we're going to talk about those, and we're going to learn some ways that we can take little steps that will actually have really big impact as we move forward in life. Okay, so I always like to, make the conversation a little bit real. Why are we all here? Well, we're here because right here, heart disease is the leading cause of death in our country. And what leads to heart disease? Well, some of it is cholesterol issues. And cancer is number 2. So we're going to actually talk a little bit about how we can navigate both of these a little bit, but we'll get there. But let's focus on the heart disease for right now. I have a lot of statistics for you that can make you kind of sad, but you know that one person dies every 33 seconds from cardiovascular disease? So that's a lot. right? We've had 695,000 people in the US died from heart disease in 2021. So that was 1 out of every 5 deaths was related to heart disease. Okay, we know that some of those other deaths now are related to cancer, but once again, we'll get there. Okay, so what is cholesterol? You may all be wondering, what really is cholesterol? Well, most of us think about it as that white, plaquey, waxy substance found in our body, but it's also found in every cell of our body. Cholesterol is essential for cellular health. Cholesterol is essential for our health. And without enough cholesterol, even the way essential minerals move in and out of our cells can become marred, okay? Cholesterol also helps produce hormones. You know, without cholesterol, we wouldn't have all those sex hormones. We wouldn't have testosterone and estrogen and progesterone. It helps us synthesize vitamin D. Maybe, possibly, is that why we're seeing more vitamin D deficiency than we've seen in many, many years? Because maybe we're taking cholesterol blockers and that's also blocking our ability to synthesize vitamin D? I don't know. It helps create bile acids. So it really helps with our digestive system if we don't have enough bile acids and we can't break stuff down. And it supports brain function. And this is actually key here. I'm going to make a big point on this too. Without enough cholesterol, we can't protect the myelin sheaths in our brain. So if my cholesterol level is really, 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 really low, do I actually have enough cholesterol in my body to feed my brain? There is a problem when it gets way too out of hand. But once again, we'll talk a little bit about that. What's too out of hand? We've got some guidelines and stuff in here. So cholesterol is actually very essential for our body and our health. Okay, it's an essential part of it. So where do we get cholesterol from? Well, the majority of us either eat too much cholesterol. You can see there where we get those triglycerides from food, heads on down to the intestine, kind of break down into triglycerides that then go out through the blood vessels. And if we have enough HDL, which HDL is the good one, the raw, yay, raw for HDL. HDL will grab all the extra stuff and take it to the liver so the liver, we can get rid of it, right? But now if my liver is overwhelmed or I'm eating way too much of it, what's going to happen is there's too much. And so I'm going to have that excess LDL that's going to go around into the bloodstream and then deposit this extra plaque into the cell walls. Once the plaque hits the cell wall, usually in an area that's kind of weakened already or hard or stiff from other reasons, you get a little cholesterol there and then the body goes, hey, what's that on that blood vessel? That shouldn't be there. And you get an immune response. So now your white blood cells go to the area and now I have a big party and now I have a clog in my artery and I have a heart attack or I have a stroke. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, all right. So what causes high cholesterol? See, this is where I have an issue with the way Western medicine runs cholesterol, because I feel that we're very quick to hand out a statin or a medication for it, and we don't necessarily take enough time to find out, hey, what might be making that cholesterol go up? Because if my cholesterol is elevating and elevating and elevating, it's a protein that is designed to help the body repair. Remember when I showed you how essential it is for the cells? Okay, so if my cholesterol's up, it's either I've got maybe bad thyroid function, very common with hypothyroidism for blood lipids to get really high in the body. I could be allergic to food that I'm unaware of, and then that's my body's response to that because it's inflammation. When I try to lose weight too quickly, unfortunately, that causes kind of a change in the homeostasis of the blood. And so we get more cholesterol being thrown out into the blood during those times. Fatty liver disease. Anyone in here like sugar? Anyone in here eat carbohydrates? Anyone here an American? Most of us probably have a little bit of fatty liver. Okay, I know I did. That was part of what my journey helped me get rid of my fatty liver as well. You can do that. Leaky gut. So that's a whole other topic. Infections, kidney disease, and high carbs and sugar. Now, honestly, that bottom one is the most likely it's the most common culprit of high cholesterol is we are eating too many carbs and too many sugar in our diet. We're not getting enough exercise. And let's be honest, that's a big part of it. Some of us, unfortunately, are just genetically predispositioned to have a higher cholesterol and higher triglycerides. And so for me, sure, I suffer from this. I do. I used to have a really leaky gut. I don't believe it's as leaky as it used to be. I believe I've done a lot of hard work on it over the years, and it's pretty good. I used to have a fatty liver. So I do have food allergies. I'm one of those gluten, and oh, God forbid you give me dairy. You don't want to be in the room with me an hour later, right? So we have to look for those other culprits and correct those first before you want to just put a Band-Aid on a problem, because sometimes that's actually, that problem is actually the warning sign because something else is happening. Yep. Oh, I skipped over leaky gut. Well, leaky gut. So many of us actually suffer from leaky gut because we don't eat correctly. So if our bacterial levels are not correct, if we take a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, if we take a lot of Tylenol, if we drink a lot of the wrong things. Well, no, leaky gut just means that your gut's integrity is not such that essential nutrients leak through and don't go into the bloodstream like they should. So it's kind of what leaky gut is actually malnutrition. Your body's inability to break down and absorb everything that you need is really what leaky gut is. Well, there are some tests for gut unhealth, but you would go with your symptoms. You know, do I have a lot of diarrhea? Do I get a lot of dyspepsia after I eat? Do I have a lot of gas? Do I, have constant pain? You would kind of be keying into issues. But, leaky gut can be also caused by taking proton pump inhibitors for too long. A lot of people take antacids and things to calm down the acid in the stomach, and then that disrupts the pH balance, so then your body's not breaking down things the way they should, so you're not absorbing essential nutrients like you should. So then now my body's immune system is not as robust. I am more set up for heart disease. My bones are probably more porous, right? Everything happens here in the gut because this is where we put our fuel and our medicine, right? Food is thy medicine. So we have to have a really healthy gut so that we can then process that which we put in for our health. Does that kind of answer your question? Yep. Okay. Right. Okay. So the history of cholesterol. Well, the word itself is, consists of chol, which is bile, and then steroids. So cholesterol was first isolated back in 1784 by a French guy who's, we'll go with not Carl Mueller. His name was, I can't remember his name, but it was really long, like LaSalle. His last name is LaSalle. I can't remember his first name. No problem. Come on through. And then Carl Mueller was the first to advise cardiac patients that, hey, maybe eating a diet that is less in fats and cholesterol.
You want to talk to me later?
Okay. All right. We'll chat later. His term that he used it in was poor in cholesterol diet. So, cholesterol has been around for a while. And in basically 1929, then this guy, Michael here, he suggested that circulating lipids exist to basically in patients, and that was the discovery of lipoprotein A, basically. So we've known about cholesterol a long time, okay? We started really studying things from a Western perspective back in the 10s, 20s, 30s is kind of really when we started. In fact, here in this country in the 30s, the majority of doctors were homeopathic doctors or natural doctors until the 30s and 40s, when then the AMA and the medical establishment came in, and once again, a story for another day. So let's talk about the history of the statins, though, because I think this is an important point to make, or we'll get to that. So back in 1959, the very first one we had was MER29, and it was an inhibitor of cholesterol. It was tested in rats and dogs by the Merrill Company. Just before the FDA evaluated, it appeared that there were serious side effects, cataract, hair loss, and other things that were not reported. So in 63, so that kind of, we're a litigious society. That started back in the 60s. But in 1976, at Sanko here, Dr. Endo, or I don't know if he's a doctor or not, but Endo published his discovery of ML236B, which was a powerful inhibitor of the HMG-CoA reduction. That's the whole cholesterol pattern in the body, the cycle of it. So we want to decrease that. That's decreasing. But then in 80, they stopped development of it because it was causing lymphoma in dogs. But just like everything, we got a lot of pressure because they saw, gosh, these drugs really do cut down that cholesterol level quite a bit. So by 1980, they decided they're putting it out on the market regardless of what earlier trials were showing. So lovastatin clinical trials were stopped by Merck due to rumors that it also caused cancer in dogs, but due to pressure, it was reduced and resumed in 84. Then we got approval of lovastatin, then simvastatin came out, and pravastatin came out in the 80s, and then by the 2010 is when we started to have more of the semi-synthetic ones, like Crestor. So these have been all on the market for a while, and we've been using them to drive down cholesterol levels. But I think something that caught my attention when I'm reading through this, I'm like, well, gosh, if that caused lymphoma back then, what's the rate of lymphoma? So, we have AI now, right? So this is from Copilot. I asked Copilot to give me the incidence of lymphoma in this country from 1970, because that's kind of when all the drugs were starting, to current. And this was the table that I got. Now the top is the incident rate of lymphoma in this country, and the red is basically the mortality rate, or we're supposed to say unaliving now rate of of it. So you can see here from 1970, lymphoma in this country has gone up. Is it been just because of statins? I think they're part of the reason, but would be lying if I said that's the only reason that we have more lymphoma in this country. We have a lot more toxins than we had back in the 70s. But there is a correlation. And the data is from the CDC. So, it's not like it's...
Why do you think there's a decrease, like right after 2000?
Those are good questions. So I think that we came out with a lot better drugs then for cancer. And so I think that our ability to thwart cancer from a pharmacological perspective got a lot better at that point as well. And I think we saw a bit of a decrease. But we see that it's kind of raising again now too. So I don't know.
The units on the left, the rate per 100,000, what is it, 60, 600? What's the rate? Those units.
Okay, so in the United States in 22, it was 1,851,000 new cancer cases, and a little over 500,000 people died of cancer. These rates are, I think it's, yeah.
So only lymphoma is a type of cancer of the lymph?
Yes, and blood. Mm-hmm. Causes tumors in cancer of the blood, usually treated with chemo. Yeah.
So it's probably just 2 per 100,000 if there were a million cases.
Yes. Yeah.
Or just like individual.
Yeah.
Individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking for another number. I'm so stuck on numbers. Okay, so the good news. All right, so I've depressed you enough. I showed you that, heart disease is big, cancer is big, but we can actually help control our own cholesterol. There's a lot of ways that we can control cholesterol without taking a statin. In fact, there are natural statins. So we'll talk about those. But the first thing first is the best thing that you can do for yourself and your cholesterol is to eat more fiber. I would challenge you all to write down the amount of fiber that you are eating on a daily basis. And you need to make that about 40 to 45 grams a day if you want to be decreasing your cholesterol levels, decreasing your risk of colon cancer. You want to eat about 40 to 45 grams of fiber a day. Okay?
Men, women, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Everyone needs about the same amount of fiber. Protein is different. We need different amounts of protein as men and women, but fiber, we just don't get enough. But obviously, if you're a smoker, stop smoking because that's very problematic to your lipids. We have found that a diet high in phytosteroids, which is what you get from like fruits and veggies and nuts and avocados and whole grains and taking the skin off the poultry, basically eating a Mediterranean diet is the way to go if you want to control your cholesterol naturally. It's really the best way to go if you want to control your risk of cancer. It's the best way to go if you want to control your risk of Alzheimer's disease. The Mediterranean diet, if you need to follow a diet, is the best diet to follow. Okay. I highlighted mushrooms here because we are going to talk a bit about mushrooms when I get through the rest of the steroid stuff, because mushrooms are, I think, are really very important and very powerful in helping with cholesterol and even blood sugar and cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's, dementia, and a lot of the other things that we're kind of worried about and talking about. So we'll get there in a second. All right, so what does the Mediterranean diet look like then? This is kind of what the Mediterranean diet looks like. What you want to be doing is here at the bottom. You want to spend most of your time at the bottom of the pyramid because you'll see there, that's where you're going to find all your whole grains and your breads, your beans, your nuts, your fruits and veggies, your olive oil. And I would say, do yourselves a favor and spend the extra money for a really good extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. Really makes a difference. A lot of the other olive oil, a lot of the oils in this country, I hate to say, but they're pretty rancid while they're sitting on the shelves waiting for us to buy them. And a lot of them add, you know, a little bit of lemon, a little bit of lime to hide some of the rancidity at times. And you really, really want for health, you want an extra virgin cold pressed olive oil for your health, okay? I love avocado oil too. I think you can throw avocado oil into these first three categories for your fats.
Is there a brand that you recommend of avocado?
You know, they make those like the Gaza and those sizzle ones are very easy to use. And they're a little more affordable, but you really just want, it just needs to say cold press. And I would get it from Italy. If you can, get it from Italy. Yeah.
What about cold pressed safflower oil?
Yeah, that's good too. Anything cold press is going to be better than not.
And walnut oil?
Sure. As long as you're not allergic to walnuts and you have no problem with nuts, right? Be careful with walnut oil if you're around anyone who has nuts allergies. Yeah. The thing about peanut oils and stuff is that we tend to cook them a little too hot and then we kind of break down the goodness of them. So you have to be really careful. You're going to use a nut oil. Try not to turn the heat up too intensely.
The previous slide said no, not maybe it didn't say no cheese, but it said don't eat cheese, and that says cheese.
Well, there's a difference in cheeses.
To avoid cheese.
Right. There's a difference in cheeses. If we're talking about just cheddar cheese and Monterey Jack and your simple cheeses over the counter, those have a lot more dairy in them, so they can be kind of problematic in an inflammatory way. But if you tend to focus on more of the harder cheeses like Gouda, feta, goat cheese, they're not as problematic. So, right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think this one just refer to processed cheese.
Right. Definitely stay away from American cheese in a slice. Oh my God. Don't even get me started on that. But yeah, it's how are we making the cheese? Is it from your farmer's market and it was like really good cheese? Or are you spraying it out of the can on your cracker? But we used to do that. I did as a kid. It was fun. All right, so you can see there that the fish and seafood, you know, several times a week. I could almost eat fish almost every day. I think we have to be careful on the type of fish that we're eating. We want to eat sustainably, of course, right? A lot of the fish that's in our markets are farm-raised fish. I don't know, they kind of are farm-raised in the same pond over and over and over and over in larger amounts, and I don't know how clean that is. As opposed to maybe the way we used to fish with the ponds. You know, I'm going to go to Aloha in the back here, go to Hawaii, where they, you know, have things where the salt water comes in and takes it out. And it's, you know, I don't know how well some of the farm raised fish, how and what they're feeding the fish. So wild caught fish obviously is best. And of course, if we're eating fish more than a couple times a week, we have to be cautious about the amount of mercury, the heavy metals that we may find in the fish. You can't really pull the fish out of our ocean and not find some kind of pharmaceutical or some kind of heavy metal in it these days, unless you're really out there eating the good wild stuff. Okay, and then you can see dairy, eggs, cheese, poultry weekly in moderate portions. Okay. Who in here eats cheese every day? Yeah, I almost do. My hand's up. You see it? It is. But it's just a little on my breakfast. It's so good. And I can't eat any other because I'm lactose intolerant. So that's my little bit of dairy. And then, of course, I have to take some calcium and other things because I can't get enough in. Right? And then meats and sweets, of course. If you really want to be healthy and you want to live in moderation, or homeostasis is my big medical term, you have to eat healthy about 85 to 90% of the time. So this top area here is about for that 10, 15% of the time. Okay, that's it. So how I tell my clients about that is, let's say that you just want to have one free day every week. So Sunday is my free day. I'm going to eat whatever I want every Sunday. But the rest of the week, I eat really good and really healthy. Then my body's going to deal with that and it's going to be fine. Okay? But let's be real. The majority of our society eats this about 80 to 90% of the time, and this 10 to 15, 20% of the time. So we really need to kind of flip that pyramid and really be focusing, once again, at the bottom here of this pyramid and not at the top. Okay, I know we all want to be at the top, but not in this case. In this case, it's better to be on the bottom. All right. So statins, we're going to talk about the different medications now that we can use for cholesterol. Okay, so diet-wise, Mediterranean diet. Physical, I don't have a slide in here on physical activity, and I probably should have put one in. My students would probably yell at me because I would yell at them if they didn't include it in theirs. But we need about 150 minutes of exercise a week. That means 30 minutes of walking a day. Means you can't walk every day, you walk an hour every other day. Okay, do something. If you can only walk 10 minutes at a time, but you do that 3 times a day, like after every meal, that's ideal. To actually get up and take a 10 or 15 minute walk after your meal will actually help your insulin, will help your body process. It's like the best thing that you can do to bring down blood lipids and blood sugars. It's just that activity. You don't want to do anything too intense after eating, right? Grandma always said, don't jump in the pool after, wait 30 minutes. Yeah. So the thing that I want to really impress upon you, though, is that if you have to take a statin, if your cholesterol levels are just that, and I've had a heart attack and I have stents in my body, or I've had bypass surgery and my lipids are really problematic and I need to take a statin. The one thing that's really problematic about statins is that it leaches out the naturally occurring CoQ10 levels in the body. CoQ10 is like energy. Think about the CoQ10 as like the gasoline, the energy that sparks all the cells so they can do their job. So if I'm taking that out of the body, then every cell in my body is now going to be kind of aching, which is why we see a lot of myalgias and why we see a lot of leg cramping. I'll use English, sorry. Leg cramping and muscle aches and pains and joint problems when we take certain medications. Okay, it's because we're also depleting the CoQ10 levels. So if you have to take a statin, take CoQ10, and the dosage is right there, 100 to 200 milligrams a day. better to take with a meal because it absorbs more efficiently that way. The latest guidelines, so let's talk about the guidelines on cholesterol, because I think that kind of throws everybody. And I kind of have them for you a little bit on the back as well of your handout, kind of what my recommendations would be. And we'll get through some of the other medications in a minute. But so my cholesterol should be less than 200. But let's be honest, back in the 70s, before cholesterol medication came out, if your cholesterol level was less than 300, as a medical community, we were okay with that. And there are some studies that show that our cholesterol, as we hit 50 and 60, should be like 200 to 240, like 230, 240 is actually a perfect range so that our brain has that protection. Remember how I said cholesterol helps protect the myelin sheaths in the brain? We need to have a level of about 200 to 240, I feel, to really protect that. What else have we really seen become very rampant in society since the 1970s? Dementia.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's dementia. Are we seeing some more Alzheimer's dementia because we're driving cholesterol levels too low? I don't know. Maybe. Okay. So I think from my clinical perspective, the real bang for buck where your cholesterol is where is my HDL and where is my LDL? And triglycerides as well, right? So honestly speaking, if your HDL is above 40, you're pretty okay. But if your HDL is above 60, you're good. That's really good. You really want to try to get that HDL up to 60, okay? I will tell you that when the HDL is less than 40 and your HDL is hanging in the 30s, that I would see you at Memorial in my cath lab having stents put in after you've had heart attacks and everything because your good cholesterol was just too low and the bad cholesterol was too high. Okay, so we have to flip that, right? So back now we like to see an LDL lower than 100. That used to be 150. So if your LDL is less than 150, I still think you're okay. Once again, as long as you haven't had heart attack, stroke, bypass, it's a different topic. We're talking about now for just trying to keep lipids level to stay healthy, okay? All right. And then we want triglyceride levels less than 150. But you know, a 2019 Science Advisory found that studies didn't generally support an association between dietary cholesterol and cardiovascular risk. Yeah, it's more about what's the damage in my body that's causing my cholesterol to go up, that then now I'm at risk. Okay? It's not necessarily just the diet. And that's what they were trying to make a point of. So we have quite a few herbal supporters of cholesterol, natural supporters. We have citrus bergamot, we have red rice yeast, and we have the omega-3s. So I want to talk about those because red rice yeast is actually what the pharmaceutical companies are trying to mimic with their cholesterol medications. You can see red rice yeast is one of the most effective nutraceuticals, and it actually kind of came pretty even with the majority of the statins in a lot of different trials. Okay. Reductions in LDL of almost up to 25% within 2 months, which is pretty big, almost a quarter reduction just from red rice yeast. Why? Because it has the monocolin K in it, which is basically the active compound that they're mimicking in the cholesterol lowering. So this works on that HMG-CoA pathway thing that you guys don't really need to completely understand, but this is what takes care of that. Just as if you were on a statin though, if I'm taking red rice yeast, I may still get the myalgias and the issues because it's also going to deplete my CoQ10. It's working on the same pathway. So you need to make sure that you also take, your CoQ10 if you're going to take red rice yeast. Okay? So CoQ10 is a good thing. Everyone, especially over the age 50, could benefit from a little CoQ10 because, just our production of it, just like everything else, tends to trickle down the older that we get. Yeah.
The handout, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We'll pass him back. Okay, so the side note here that I kind of want you to look at for a second is it says also reduces HSCRP. So HSCRP, it stands for high sensitive C-reactive protein. And it's a marker in your blood that we look at that shows us how much actual internal inflammation do you have. So gosh, red rice yeast, just like cholesterol medications, do bring down some inflammation in the body, okay? But this is a more natural way to go about it, right, than that. But here we're also getting a reduction in HSCRP. If my HSCRP is elevated, I'm more at risk for heart attack and strokes. Okay? It's just an inflammatory marker that we look at. Oh, can you ask your doctors to run an HSCRP to see if you have any inflammation? And then if so, maybe should I go on an anti-inflammatory diet or figure out why I'm inflamed and take care of that? Take care of what's causing the inflammation, then you don't have to take any of these things, right? Right? Make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right, so citrus bergamot. So I, like the statins, tried red rice yeast, and it did something funky to me too. So I must just have some weird genetic alteration in my pathway that doesn't typically like anything that hits that. Oh, it comes, you can buy it in a vitamin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I found citrus bergamot, and citrus bergamot is something that I take actually twice a day. Citrus bergamot has probably more polyphenols and more antioxidant oomph than any other citrus plant on the planet. It grows in a certain part of the world. I have that on my other notes. I don't know that you guys really care about that so much, but what makes citrus bergamot so powerful is this right here. It's all of these great ingredients in there. And does anyone know what rutin is? Anyone ever heard the term rutin or know what rutin is? Rutin is actually what you find in buckwheat. So buckwheat has been shown in many studies to actually help remove atherosclerotic plaquing from blood vessels. So rutin helps pull cholesterol out of the vessel linings. How does it do that? Buckwheat actually is like citrus bergamot and basically an antioxidant powerhouse. And so by being an antioxidant powerhouse, that actually, those antioxidants are what go in and help the vessels heal. Buckwheat or rutin actually helps prevent vessels from hardening and stiffening. Rutin helps keep vessels nice and pliable. If my vessels are nice and pliable and able to ebb and flow like they should, then I don't get hypertension and I don't get plaque buildup in my arteries. So everyone add more buckwheat to your diet as well. Mediterranean diet, lots of buckwheat, rutin, maybe get yourself some citrus bergamot if you want. This has so much vitamin C in it, you don't need to take vitamin C if you're taking citrus bergamot or if you're eating rutin. So fun fact, I'm kind of a dork for fun facts. Buckwheat was one of the main bushels of food that would go on all of the ships when they were going cross seas, because the citrus would only last so long, right? Everyone's heard of scurvy, how people on boats can get scurvy. Well, that's a deficiency in vitamin C. So they would eat up all the citrus first, and then when the citrus was gone, they'd move on to the buckwheat so that they'd get their vitamin C and not get their scurvy. Okay? All right, so the last thing that I think is really so beneficial to our bodies just as a whole, and not just for cholesterol reasons, but for so many other reasons, are omega-3 fatty acids. So they have a lot of different functions. They help promote anti-inflammatory, so they're anti-inflammatory, which is nice. They help improve circulation, and circulation is really key. What Grandma always said, move it or lose it. Grandma's always right. If you're not moving, then you're not circulating. And if your body is not circulating, then you become stagnant. And once you become stagnant, you then develop disease. It's really that simple. Okay. Also helps decrease joint pain. Who doesn't want some joint pain decreasing? Relaxing blood vessels. Hey, if I'm able to relax those blood vessels again, they're not getting hard, they're not getting stiff, and I'm not moving towards heart disease and heart attacks and strokes, right? It helps support memory and learning focus, helps your concentration and your mood. And a big part of why I take so much fish oil is because my triglycerides are what are really problematic with my cholesterol. When I was a kid, I remember like watching the lipid molecules float inside the blood tubes whenever I had to give blood. I mean, I had lipids in my blood as a kid. What was I eating as a kid? Well, sugar, carbs, Diet Coke. I was putting all kinds of inflammatory things in my body that my body didn't like gluten and milk and all kinds of things. So I was a nightmare. No wonder, right? But fish oil is really, really very beneficial in bringing down triglyceride levels. I prefer cod liver oil is my favorite type of oil. Grandma's always right. I mean, if any of you are old enough, maybe you remember going to school and the teacher at the front had the spoon and was like, here's your cod liver. And the scary part is that everybody lined up and had the cod liver off the same spoon. They didn't change spoons back then. So why? Cod liver has naturally occurring vitamin D in it, something we're all lacking. You know, we're lacking vitamin D because we all put sunscreen on too. You know, there's a lot of different reasons. We avoid some of the sun sometimes because we know it's not good for us. But it also has naturally occurring vitamin A in it, which is really good for our eye health as we age. So cod liver is, you know, cod liver also diminishes viral onslaught. So if I'm taking fatty acids every day, I'm diminishing my body's response to COVID and even, you know, all those viruses that are out there now that we're managing. If I take fish oil every day, it's boosting my immune system. I'm better able to navigate in this new world that we're learning to navigate in. Okay. So before I move on to my talk, a quick talk on mushrooms, anyone have any questions? What do you think of my picture? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So do y'all remember that we are actually an animal kingdom, a plant kingdom, but also fungal is our third kingdom. We are, Mother Earth has 3 kingdoms. And I don't know how many of you are interacting with the fungal kingdom right now. I think us in America really didn't think it was important. It's very much downplayed and not something I don't think we really take a look at. But there's been some amazing research that has come out recently that makes me look at mushrooms completely different. I have been studying with, he termed this term, so I'm going to give him the credit for it, but an herbal doctor from Australia, and he has decided that we have become fungitarians. So I think everyone in this room wants to become a fungitarian if you can eat mushrooms and you like mushrooms. And I'm going to tell you why. But before we move on, does this not creep anybody else out? What's that?
It's their pet dog.
Is it their dog? Okay. It's the animal kingdom. Okay, perfect. Yeah, this was actually taken from a graveyard cemetery in Guatemala, and it dates back to like 300 BC. So these are really old. So our ancestors knew how important the fungal kingdom was, how we all 3 of them really need to have a symbiotic relationship. And I'm going to tell you that I think that mushrooms actually are the new fountain of youth. So everyone who lives in California wants to live a nice long life. They want to work on anti-aging, and mushrooms are a big part of that. There are a lot of different ingredients in mushrooms that make them therapeutic. I'm going to just talk about one of them, which is ergothioneine, because there's been a lot of research on ergothioneine lately that's come out. And what's really interesting about the ergo is that it is actually found on most tissues, tends to accumulate in tissues that are undergoing a lot of oxidative stress. So what this means is that by eating mushrooms are going to go in and help my body, my vessels heal as well, because it actually goes to the areas where it needs it to try and help it heal. Therapeutic. All right. So it's ET real quick. It's a natural antioxidant. Okay. It's a sulfur-containing amino acid that we get primarily from dietary sources such as mushrooms. But for those of you that don't like mushrooms, you can also find it in like some beans and some grains. And what's very interesting is that ergo even goes to the breast milk. That's how important it is for baby's health. Body allows it to go there. And it's a huge antioxidant. It's cytoprotective. So let me just show you really quick some of the things that we've found. So ergothioneine itself is a stress vitamin, just kind of like buckwheat and, citrus bergamot and vitamin C. Okay. It helps prevent the formation of free radicals, inhibits oxidative stress, goes around and scavenges to take out things that are problematic, removing all of the reactive oxygen species. And it also helps pull out heavy metals. Wow. That's pretty, yeah. And decreases inflammation. Remember, inflammation is the cause of all evil in the body. Sugar is typically what leads to the inflammation. You got to find, got to follow. It helps pull out like chelating, meaning that it helps to pull out heavy metals from your body. So if I, go and I lick, wall paint in these old homes, right? I might have too much, heavy metals or iron in my whatever they put in. Lead. Thank you. I was going for something heavy and iron came. Thank you. All the lead that's in the paints and stuff, that's not good for us, right? We're not supposed to have lead in our body. Well, gosh, mushrooms help pull out lead from the body, help pull out the heavy metals like mercury and things that if they're getting too problematic, which is huge. There are studies that show that having too many heavy metals in your body can lead to dementia, lead to clogging up your blood flow, so diminishing your circulation. But here, this is our topic of the day here, in this heart here, reduces, once again, oxidative damage. It relaxes the heart and the blood vessels, which is huge. Because once again, if I can relax my blood vessels, now I don't have high blood pressure. I'm diminishing all of the factors that tend to lead to heart disease. Eating mushrooms actually treats and diminishes that from even beginning and starting. So this last one, preventing the binding of monocytes to endothelial cells. That's actually what happens on the lining of the vessels where the lipids come in, and this helps, diminish that. Really very powerful. But mushrooms and cancer, remember I threw cancer up onto that other side there next to heart disease? I did that for a reason, because there's a recent study that actually shows that if I can just eat, this basically is 2 boxes of mushrooms a week is what this equates to. If I can eat 2 boxes of mushrooms a week, I am diminishing my risk of developing cancer by almost 50%, 45%. That's huge. That is huge. Boy, how much cancer do we have in this society? You saw. Got a lot. So that's huge. Just putting mushrooms into my diet, I'm diminishing my risk of cancer by 50%. That's pretty huge. Okay. Also, we talked about how it goes in and protects the neuro system as well, because ET can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. ET can go anywhere, which is amazing, because not everything can go across the blood-brain barrier. And that actually they have done studies and looked at people who had really low levels of ET and people who had high levels of ET, and those that had high levels of ET were not the ones suffering from dementia and memory loss. There was a direct correlation to lower levels of ET and memory cognitive decline. Okay. There is a study, and I'm sure I have it here. I could tell you it if you really want it. It's in my notes, but mushrooms diminish Alzheimer's dementia, the risk of developing Alzheimer's dementia by almost, I think it was 48%, but another 50%. So by eating 2 boxes of mushrooms a week, I am diminishing my risk of heart disease, cancer, becoming demented. We also talked about how, or we haven't yet, but I mentioned that it could be the fountain of youth. So studies have actually shown that eating mushrooms diminishes the amount of muscle loss that occurs as we age. So for those of us that are postmenopausal, or even us gentlemen who are now losing our testosterone production and our muscles are starting to wane, eating mushrooms actually helps build muscle mass and bone mass. So it fights against the osteoporosis that we all worry about as we're getting older too. Okay, so basically why it's such an anti-aging drug. So right now, everybody is really hot on NAD, which NAD plus or NAD is a really important enzyme in the body for aging. And so people are going to the IV clinics and they're getting IV infusions of NAD because the best way for your body to really use it is within an infusion. Now we do make NAD in our body, okay? We do, of course, as we age, production diminishes like everything else. But when we consume mushrooms, mushrooms actually go in and take care of that whole mechanism that produces the NAD in our body, keeps it healthy so that it can continue to produce and move along with us as we age. So it is anti-aging as well. That's pretty big, huh? It's a lot from just mushrooms. So in summary, cholesterol is essential for cellular health, hormone production, and proper brain function. You've got to have cholesterol for those things. You want more HDL than LDL, okay? How do I raise up my HDL? Mediterranean diet. Walk more, okay? Diminish all of the sugar and poisons that you're putting into your body, okay? There are many underlying causes, so make sure you rule out any underlying cause and treat that first before you start a cholesterol medication. Now, if your cholesterol is high and you find the underlying problem, well, take the herbal stuff to bring down the cholesterol as you're working on the underlying problem. Maybe you won't need them forever. You can tell. You'll be able to do blood work to see, right, when you go follow up with your doctors, okay? The best way to diminish cholesterol is to eat a healthy diet and increase the amount of fiber and mushrooms in your diet. Huge. Just that alone is really very important, okay? And if you take a statin, make sure you take CoQ10, okay? All right, that's what I got. I do have a couple extra slides just on mushrooms, but I know we're kind of at our hour time.
Got a question on probiotics.
Yeah.
How do that play into?
So that plays into the gut health. Remember when he asked about the importance of gut health, it is important for us to have enough probiotics in our body.
What's the influence on cholesterol?
Absolutely. If your probiotics are off, your cholesterol is going to be off. So probiotics, everyone should be either eating probiotics like kimchi, kefir, carrots even have probiotics. Mushrooms, it's a probiotic. Yes, they are. So gut health is really everything. If your gut's not healthy, everything else is not going to be healthy. End of story. Yeah. So, yeah.
What if you don't like mushrooms? Are there supplements?
So that's a really great question. There is. So my wife does not like mushrooms. I love mushrooms. So I haven't really been eating mushrooms because she doesn't like them. But I have found a product that I do recommend to people, and it's called the 5 Defenders by a company called Real Mushrooms. And they're in Canada. And here, let me just move a little bit. So I want to make a point that not all supplements are equal, okay? We have a lot of people right now who are really making all of these coffees and teas, and they say that there's mushrooms in them and they're great for you, and this is how you should take in your mushrooms. And unfortunately, the majority of them are growing their mushrooms in grain. See the rice bucket? Do you think that this mushroom cap right here, do you think this beautiful mushroom looks anything like these beautiful mushrooms that are actually grown where they should be grown, like on tree trunks or in soil or in the right environment? Now, I'm not saying that a lot of companies are not growing, a lot of companies are growing the right way. They are growing in the right environment so that the same medicine is in the cap of the mushroom. But I'll tell you that Rise Coffee is not the way to go, because their mushrooms are grown in grain. And they weren't when they first came out.
What about Medwater?
I believe that their mushrooms are also grown in grain. You can ask them. It'll say that they're grown right here, grown in mycelium fermented grain. And if it says that, that means rice. So what does that mean for the mushroom? That means now I'm taking in mushrooms that have more carbohydrates, more, stuff from rice that's not necessarily what I'm looking for, right? And we've done many studies, and it doesn't. Lots of, taken them and looked at the amount in it. It's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah.
Do you think that's because it's cheaper, or do you think it's because it's easier?
Both. It's cheaper and easier. Mass produce. It's all about mass production in this country. Let's be real. It's not about the real medicine. Yeah. That's okay. I'll get you next.
I
Yeah.
was just going to share that there's actually a mushroom farm in Signal Hill, and you can go get
There
fresh
is.
mushrooms.
You can.
I don't know if they're grown in rice.
So I believe that they do grow some in some of the fermented grains, I believe, but I do know that they add in extra additives, and they're really, because I haven't gone myself there, but I'm going.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask
I
him
went
all
there
of these
once.
questions, but a friend of mine who's also kind of herbally said that she did ask them, and they do their best to replenish. So, and if you think about what are we buying in the stores, a good majority of probably is going to be grown this way. You have to figure out where you're buying from and where you're growing. So, hey, maybe it is better to take a product like in the back. So that product, it's called 5 Defenders. It's by a company called Real Mushrooms. So www.realmushrooms.com. Or you can contact me on the bottom, and I can order some for you as well if you have trouble ordering. Okay. They make a coffee. They make a hot chocolate actually with the mushrooms. That's really delicious. And I put a scoop of that in my morning coffee because I like a little chocolate in my coffee. And I did feel the difference. So I've been taking mushrooms for a long time, and I was drinking the Rise because I called them on the phone and I said, tell me about how you're growing your mushrooms. And they said, the only thing we're growing in grain is the cordyceps, because cordyceps is really hard to grow. It's hard to grow cordyceps, and cordyceps is actually probably one of the most amazing mushrooms because it's in Chinese medicine, it's yin and yang. It's a whole picture. And if you take in a little cordyceps on a daily basis, you're definitely diminishing your risk of cancer by a lot. And cordyceps is in that product. Other things that are in that product, not lion's mane, but lion's mane is great for neurocognitive health. So if you find that you are a little lost with your memory, add some lion's mane mushroom to your repertoire, and that will help. Okay. It's also anti-lipid. Chaga, though, chaga tea, that's like another really huge powerhouse. If you don't like it, maybe you can drink it. Okay. Cordyceps?
That's not on, oh, it is at the bottom here.
Yeah. And then, these are the ones we find in the stores and are usually very ready for us, which I think is cool. Fun fact for the boys in the room, white portobello mushrooms have been shown to diminish prostate cancer by like 40%. So get a box of white mushrooms with your other mushrooms for the boys in your household. Okay, mushrooms even have a significant amount of vitamin D in them. I mean, but here, if you have cholesterol issues, this is the one that you really should be using the most, because oyster mushrooms, this is actually, once again, one that lovastatin one of the first cholesterol medications that came out is lovastatin is found basically in oyster mushrooms. That's what they're copying there. So, and then shiitake. So honestly, this is get your most bang for your buck out of shiitake mushroom as far as culinary wise. So maybe a box of shiitake and a box of white button for a male-female household would probably be the best way to go. But mix them up, right? You can make burgers out of, portobello mushrooms and stuff. Really good to put them in soups because then you're getting the most benefit out of them, right? Okay. And then the other one I didn't really stop on, I don't have reishi in there. I thought I had reishi in here. Maybe not. I guess I don't. Never mind. But here's my last little tip on mushrooms. Always cook your mushrooms. And the longer that you cook the mushrooms, the better they are for you. If you can simmer your mushrooms for about 10 to 20 minutes, you're actually going to release more of the healthy benefits in them, especially in your sautés and stuff. So I used to always put mushrooms in last. I would always do my onions and then my celery and my carrots and kind of get that ruin going. And then I'd throw the mushrooms on because I was afraid I was damaging the mushrooms. Nah, it's actually better, and it adds more of flavor to your food, that umami taste that is just so delicious the longer they stew. So
I love them raw. When I'm cooking, it's like,
yeah, be careful. Just be careful. Don't eat too many of them raw.
really?
Yeah. You're doing okay. Look at you. Never mind. You do what you want. You look fine. Oh, that's your mom? Yeah, you're doing all right. And you raised a good girl, so you're fine. All right. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was actually diagnosed with dementia, but my father passed away from Alzheimer's and dementia at 77.
Yeah.
And about a few months back, I had a UTI. I didn't know I had it. I was in the hospital for 4 days.
Yeah.
I never had an appetite.
Yeah. Urinary tract infections can be very nasty.
The medical department tried to feed me.
Yeah.
I went back home. I weighed 168. I'm up to 200, and I can't lose weight at all. I'm stuck at 200. Didn't lose weight anywhere.
Well, maybe a little more exercise.
I have a freaking urination. I mean, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm suffering from that.
Yeah. Well, more portobello, more mushrooms. Help that prostate of yours. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't get to your question. Yeah. Oh, sorry. But I got another.
Just looking up mushroom supplements. They might call them organic, but they won't say whether they go in rice or.
You have to. Sometimes you have to call. I call and I ask them.
It says organic. Do you think that is rice?
Could be organic rice. Yeah, you really want to look. They have to say it somewhere how they grow it. So say you see one of those coffee products and they look pretty good, and maybe mud water. I don't, I think mud water was, again, fermented, because I did call about 3 or 4 of them a couple of years ago when they were first coming out. So why take something if you're not getting the real medicinal purpose that it was intended for? Sure.
We have a little self-grow mushroom company here in Long Beach
Yes.
called Long Beach Mushroom Co. And it's a husband and wife. And I think they sell stuff to grow it at home. And
So
I think it's in
probably bricks. So sometimes, yeah, you can take your mushrooms and throw them in your garden. Some will probably grow. Throw in some old sticks and give them,
They need dark.
yeah, they need dark.
Yeah, it's Laurel. Laurel's a good
Okay.
green thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
I got a kit from our daughter.
I grew potatoes for the first time this year. I was so excited. I'm like a potato farmer now.
He grew it in the garage where he could keep it.
I'm not a farmer person.
Lying in the
I'm a city
bed.
girl. You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Are you open to hanging and answering?
Oh yeah.
questions?
If anyone
Okay,
has any questions or whatever,
Let's thank Jill for her time and her knowledge.
Thank you, Jill.
And
You're welcome.
She's going to hang off for a few minutes if you want to ask some questions one-on-one. Put your contact information up.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And the contact information is on
We're
the
gonna be
bottom.
posting it on our YouTube channel shortly.
These are on the bottom of all the flyers. You have my email. So if any of you want, one of the things that I do is I help people get healthier. So I do consults for people. You bring me all your medications, you bring me all your labs, you bring me all your supplements, you bring me what you're eating, and I take a look at what you're doing, and I tell you how you can be a little healthier. So if you're interested, you can reach out.